I read Dr. Richmond?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll make sure I get your logo.
All right.
Okay, so state your name for the camera.
Isaac Richmond.
Yes, sir.
National Record Corps, Commission on Religion and Racism.
Like what's this gathering about here today down in Forrest Park?
This gathering is the final phase of the launching of a movement to erase this treasonous Confederate history from the face of public property. More specifically, we want the National Register of Public Places to rescind that move they made to honor Klux Klan Imperial Wizard Nathan Bedford Forrest by putting his name on the historic record of public places. We also want the city of Memphis, in the person of its mayor and city councilman, to rename this park. Perhaps Dr. Martin Luther King, or Nat Turner, or Malcolm X, or any other freedom fighter, in contradiction to this antithetical history of a murderer like Bedford Forrest. We also want, and we're going to be taking to the new Attorney General, Eric Holman, evidence that Bedford Forrest willfully, premeditatedly, with malice and forethought, had 300 soldiers, black soldiers, murdered at Fort Pillar at the close of the Civil War. And we want him tried for war crimes and murder posthumously.
Yes.
Now, some people will argue that why you want to cover up history? You know, this is part of our record.
No, we don't want to cover up history. We want to uncover history. It has never been said. The things that I said about Bedford Forrest, that's not promoted. Bedford Forrest is promoted as some kind of honorary figure in the Civil War. And let me just be clear on the Civil War. The Civil War was an act of treason against the U.S. government. So it deserves no honor from the U.S. government. And we want the U.S. government and the real Americans of freedom and democracy to denounce and condemn this kind of history and put it in its appropriate place.
Well, what did Bedford Forrest do before he became a prominent Civil War general? What was his?
Well, he was the organizer of and became the leader of and died the Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
Was he a slave trader in Memphis?
Slave trader.
Okay.
All that slave trader, black hater.
I mean, actually, like they said, he repented before he died, or he came to old age.
Well, we know that they all repent. Hitler repented too.
I was like, no, also they.
But we think that retribution is important. I mean, you know, they said that the man who wrote the Amazing Grace, How Sweet It Sounds, he was a slave trader, sitting on top of a slave ship named the Good Ship Jesus. And after he made all his money, and just like the Western world, after he made all his money, now they said on his deathbed, I understand, he repented. But the Bible tells me that you got to reap what you sow. There ought to be some payback. All right? And yes, Bedford Forrest is history. Everything is history. But let me just give an example. I don't think Adolf Hitler was history. The Nazi regime was history. The murdering of 6 million Jews during World War II was history. But I don't think that the Jews would allow or be silent if the statue of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi swastika flag was flying in the middle of Jerusalem, and they were paying taxes for its upkeep and maintenance. And I want to tell you that the African American community, personified in the Commission on Religion and Racism, is not satisfied with a murder of our people setting up here in a public park where we paying taxes on his upkeep and maintenance, and we want to put an end to it.
Well, it's actually like we always talk about the last words of dead men. I know that what I read is that he wanted to stay buried. He was originally buried in Elmwood Cemetery on Crump, and that's where he wanted to be buried at originally, and he wanted to stay buried close to his men. So is there a way to honor his last request, so to speak, and also appease the African American community?
Well, let me say this about where he ought to be buried. Quite frankly, I think he ought to be buried on the land of those who love him. The sons and daughters of the Confederacy, the Imperial Wizards of the Ku Klux Klan, and the alien nations. I think he ought to be bid on their private property, and they'd be responsible for cutting the yard and upkeep and maintenance of his statue.
Like I know several years ago, Al Sharpton came down here to help out with, I believe, bring acknowledgement to what was going on with the Forrest Park situation.
Yes.
Why is it taking several years later to really try to get the ball rolling?
Well, I don't know. As I was away, I heard that that Brother Sharpton faced some resistance when he came down here. I don't know from what quarter, some political resistance that he ran into, and I guess that movement at that time fizzled out. We also read in the paper a few days ago that someone had said that, well, we will now put the Bedford Forest protests or resistance movement on pause, but the Commission on Religion and Racism wanted to correct that. We're not putting it on pause. We're going to be with it until we finish the job.
Makes a lot of sense to me. And also, I'd like to ask you, I know you said a Commission on
Religion and Racism.
How has the religious community responding? Have you got any reach out, cooperation?
Well, the black religious community, as you know, and I'll give you some information about why the name of my organization, Religion and Racism. We consider religion and racism the twin weapons of mass destruction that's responsible for the condition black people are in. Religion, the mental weapon of mass destruction, designed to imprison the minds of our people to function only within the framework of white supremacy. So the religious community, by and large, has done nothing.
That's impressive. I know this is also the 41st observance of Dr. King's assassination in Memphis, and it seems as things change, we got a black president, things still remain the same. We got this Forest Park. And it seems like that. Well, what's with the apathy of Memphis? Why is Memphis like such a sleeping giant? I mean, we talked about the religious part as part of the white supremacy plan, but what else is driving us to be so apathetic when it comes to things like this?
Well, there's an abundance of not knowing. I don't want to be offensive and say ignorance, but there's an abundance of not knowing. Our school system here is probably the worst in the nation. 75–80% of our black students that graduate from school in Memphis, now 75–80%, cannot read, cannot write, cannot stand up and make a.
You said graduate now. You didn't say drop out.
Yeah,
you didn't say
graduate.
Right, graduate. Right, key word, graduate.
Yeah. So that's part of the apathy. They don't know. They have no clue about who they are. The school system does not teach who I am as a black man or as part of a black nation. And we have a leadership, which is normal. It's been like this for hundreds of years. We have leadership that is just under the radar, of those who rule over us, and so they don't function outside of that. They're not going to resist that. They don't break out. They're not going to break rank with that. And that's what we have in Memphis. That's why it happened. So a movement must be built to break through that, and CORR is busy trying to do that, to break through that apathy.